Last night was rough for Chargers fans everywhere. But today, I'm ready to talk about the loss to the Cowboys. And while I pull up this list of all of the takeaways, make sure to like and subscribe if you do enjoy this content. It helps me out so much. And now, let's get into this one, man. Keenan Allen had a great freaking game, and he should have had an even better game because he was open so many times where he didn't get the ball, either because he wasn't thrown to, or he was interfered with, or Justin Herbert just flat out missed him. Keenan seemed to have his best games against the Cowboys in his career, and if Herbert hit him every single time when he was even just wide open rather than open, then Keenan would have had like 200 yards. He had 7 catches for 85 yards and a touchdown. Keenan, the Slayer, still has it, and he looked like one of the best wide receivers in the NFL last night because he absolutely is. And the stats don't show how much he dominated that Cowboys secondary. Also, Joshua Palmer looked really good as well. He had some big catches there that were taken away due to penalty, but he was making big catches consistently, and he was clearly Justin Herbert's second favorite target on the field, obviously behind Keenan Allen. It's really important that we have somebody step up with Mike Williams gone, and we're going to talk about some of these other wide receivers later on in this video, but Joshua Palmer was snagging everything in his vicinity, even if the ball was off target. Man, he flashed last night. Now let's talk about these other receivers. Derius Davis, he looked great. He looked shifty in that return in that first quarter to set up the Chargers' first touchdown of the game. But outside of that, he had literally no usage in this game, and Quentin Johnston didn't either. Why are you not using these rookies from TCU? Both of these guys have shown flashes so far in training camp and in the regular season, and we're not getting any usage out of them, even with Mike Williams gone. And when we had Austin Ekeler off the field, they still were not getting involved as much as they should have been. They targeted Quentin Johnston 2 times, and both times he had no chance at getting a reception. I don't understand how you have a first-round wide receiver riding the bench and not being thrown to when he is on the field, and then another wide receiver doing the things that Derius Davis is doing on special teams and on offense when you are giving him the ball, and you do not utilize either of these guys. It is mind-boggling to me. Austin Ekeler is back, so I understand that they want to use him as much as possible, but he could not run the ball at all. He was averaging less than 2 yards per carry, and he only had 1 good catch in this entire game. Austin Ekeler, he was a non-factor in this game. And when that's the case, I especially want to see what Quentin Johnston and Derius Davis have to offer on this offense. I mean, Derius Davis made an impact on a punt return. How do you see that and decide to not use him at all on offense, even when you're struggling late in the game? Speaking of struggling, man, Justin Herbert, not having a great game. He did not play well last night. He was uncomfortable all night because the Chargers' offensive line was not playing well, but he still had awesome pocket presence, okay? That pocket presence is still there. That's a feel thing that he is always going to have throughout his entire career unless something crazy happens in his brain. He is always going to have that because I think it's like second nature to him. That pocket presence is just having a good feel for the game. Where he didn't play well was he was missing throws at times, and he just was not comfortable in behind that offensive line because that offensive line gave up 18 pressures, and they only gave up 1 sack, but they also had 6 penalties called on them, so they were struggling all night against that Cowboys front. And there were 2 times that Keenan Allen was wide open, and I do mean wide open, right up the seam on a route, and both of those probably go for touchdowns if Justin Herbert can make an accurate throw right there. He couldn't do it. Both of those times he wasn't under pressure, he just missed the throw. Oh man, but I don't know if it's the hand that's bothering him or if he was just having a bad night, but either way, he was flat out missing throws and was late on a couple of reads. Like I said, that offensive line definitely had a lot to do with it, and maybe the play calls did too. I don't know, but just what I saw and what we can all see, Justin Herbert had an off night. He did not play well. And now let's move on to the defense. I feel like I always say this in my videos. Tuipulotu had another great game, and that dude is just a straight up baller. Man, he may be the Chargers' best player on defense, even though we got guys like Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack, Derwin James, and Eric Kendricks. He had a 90.0 grade by PFF, which is elite, and he had 5 pressures, only 1 run stop. But I was watching him, and he was playing the run really well, like he usually does. So I don't know why he was only credited with 1. Maybe that's the only time that he actually made a big impact on the play and they were trying to run away from him. I don't know what it was. Maybe the stat is a little bit weird. He sets the edge better than anybody on this team, and he runs the stunt move better than anyone on this team. On one of Morgan Fox's sacks, he freed him up on that stunt move, taking away the guard and the tackle. Bada bing, bada boom. Tuli is the Chargers' best defender this year. And if you watch the tape, then you will not argue with me on that. And the future is so bright for him. He is 21 years old and an edge player. That is a very high value position, and a very young player playing at this level. Chargers got a real good one. Now, I also thought Kenneth Murray had a pretty good game in run defense. It looked like he was reading and reacting well. He only had 1 missed tackle with 7 total tackles last night. However, when it came to coverage, he was targeted 8 times and gave up 6 catches for 102 yards. Oh my gosh. That is almost half of the passing yardage that the Cowboys got in this entire game, given up just by Kenneth Murray in coverage. Now, Eric Kendricks was much better in coverage, not allowing any catches, only targeted 1 time. He also had 4 run stops, compared to Kenneth Murray, who had 5 run stops. So it's not like Kenneth Murray was a much better in run defense, but it is worth mentioning that they both played really well in run defense, and really the entire Chargers defense did, allowing less than 100 yards on the ground and only 30 yards to Tony Pollard, the Cowboys' lead running back. That is a legitimate positive takeaway from this game, because we all thought that Tony Pollard would be running all over this team, and that if they could stop the run, that they would have a much better chance at winning this game. Now let's talk about our star defenders, specifically Derwin James. Now Derwin did not show up in this game at all, and he might as well have been Raheem Lane or Dean Marlowe out there, because he was not a factor. I don't know if they were avoiding him or what, but he was only involved in 1 tackle, and that's it. On top of that, the tackle that he did make was a penalty, and it gave the Cowboys better field position in order to kick a field goal before the half. And then at the end of the game, that field goal ended up being the winning field goal. So Derwin James, he is supposed to be the best safety in the NFL and our best player on defense, made 1 impact play in this game, and it was a negative one. On top of that, Joey Bosa was not impactful either. And Khalil Mack, he did have a good game. I'm going to be honest with you. I'll give him that. He had 1 sack, but in run defense, he was just as good as Tuipulotu. And man, I wish all of these guys were just as good as Tuli, because then we'd have an actual pretty good defense. And these defensive backs were playing so far off of these Cowboys receivers like the entire game. And nobody could guard CeeDee Lamb this entire game. He caught every single one of his targets for over 100 yards, and Michael Davis and Jasir Taylor and Asante Samuel Jr. were consistently playing 10 yards off of these guys almost the entire time. I know that was a coaching decision, but why put your players in bad position? Listen to this. The Cowboys have the lowest average depth of target in the NFL, and you play your defense that far back? What is the game plan there? To allow them to throw underneath, which is what they do very often. That's how they succeed. And then what, make the tackle? Because you know this defense is notoriously bad at missing tackles. So why are you putting them in position to miss even more tackles when you know that that is a very bad negative for your team? It's almost like Brandon Staley doesn't understand this. And speaking of missing tackles, why? Did Dak Prescott look like he was Ben Roethlisberger and Lamar Jackson combined last night? Bro, the Chargers made him look like he was the biggest threat to run the ball at quarterback in the NFL, and they need to be more disciplined and be put in better position to succeed by Brandon Staley. I mean, Brandon Staley is supposed to be this defensive mastermind. I have not been seeing it this entire season. Last year, I'm going to be honest with you, I saw it last year. This year, I am not seeing it with all of these penalties, the stupid mistakes, the fourth down decisions, missed tackles, bad positioning, and questionable game plans. Listen, man, my patience for Brandon Staley has run thin. And if this season results in anything less than a wild card win, then Staley has got to go. And then on top of that, Tom Telesco should go too. How many chances has he had in this draft over the past decade, and we have nothing to show for it? Our star players are not playing like star players. We just went over that. Derwin James and Joey Bosa, two guys we drafted, did not show up in this game. And we need to have a change of leadership, or we are going to continue to be mediocre and lose games like this. The first drive on defense and offense were awesome, man. They were so good. But then after that, it was all downhill from there. Is it because the Cowboys coaching staff made adjustments and the Chargers didn't or couldn't? Well, I'm going to watch the film this week, so we're going to find out. And those are all of my highlights and takeaways from this game. It was a rough one. It was a rough one if you're a Chargers fan. And this was my immediate reaction to the game last night. I was very upset. I'll just leave it at that.